Well, good Memorial Day Monday to you. It is our live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Drs. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition, Cowan Road, Gulfport, south of Pass Road. And in the tradition of Memorial Day, we decided to do the red, white, and blue to remember all those men and women that made the supreme sacrifice for the freedom that we enjoy here in America. So
we did want to thank all the military as well.
Yes,
the active, not just the ones that have sacrificed, but the ones that are still sacrificing.
That's true. Yep. That's true. Every day of their lives, who have served or are currently serving. So we definitely remembering you and thanking you so much for your service. This morning, we're going to be talking about a problem that millions of Americans have to deal with on a daily basis, and that is arthritis. And our phone lines are 896-0713, 800-349-0713. If you have a question regarding arthritis, you're having some problems with it, or any particular topic, you are welcome to give us a call, and we'll be glad to get your question on the air for us. But millions of Americans, I mean, and you can start out at an early age, having problems with arthritis, but it usually is something that is as you get older.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what kind it is. I mean, you know, for instance, if it's one of the autoimmune type arthritis problems, you know, for instance, you can have that as a kid, and that does happen.
Actually, juvenile RA. Actually, usually that's why they call it juvenile, as it is when you're a kid. And sometimes they get over it before they get older, and sometimes they don't. It moves into adult RA. So you can have arthritis at any age. It's just, of course, it's way more likely. It's very common as people age.
Yeah, because, you know, life's bumps and scrapes and things tends to take its toll on us.
Yeah, it does take a toll on you after a while.
When we're real young, we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And then we get older and we realize, oh, not so.
Yeah, because the most common type of arthritis is osteoarthritis, which is actually degeneration. And degeneration is definitely going to happen from past injuries, past things you've done. I had a guy just last week say that they should teach a class to teenagers, telling them that what you do now and all the stupid things you decide to do now is going to affect you when you hit your 40s. That's what he said. He said they need to kind of teach us this when we're teenagers. So,
and we're going to do stupid things as teenagers.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And like you said, you know, the older that you get, it's like, I'm not sure if I'm that as agile anymore. I mean, just even simple things. My wife and I going fishing, you know, I'm moving around on some rocks. It's like, okay, when I was a kid, I just go boom, 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 bouncing around on the rocks from here to here to here. It's like now, no, if I slip and hurt myself,
it's going to hurt.
It's going to really
and it really could hurt. You know, like say if you bruise something or damage a joint when you're, say, in your 20s.
Right.
It may not show up as a degenerative arthritis until your 30s, 40s, 50s even, but sooner or later it'll show up.
Is it hereditary?
It can be.
There's some like the rheumatoid arthritis and so on. Yes, the other arthritic problems like even osteoarthritis and so on, you're predisposed to it.
Yes.
It's not that you're necessarily going to get it.
Yeah, some are hereditary, some aren't in osteo, because that's actually degeneration. Arthritis is a pretty broad term. I mean, if you look at what it means inflammation in the joint.
Yeah.
So technically, there's a lot of things that are classified as arthritis. Now, gout is another one that is family history. And so, you know, gouty arthritis, which a lot of people, if you have gout, you know what that is, because it does hurt.
Right.
I mean, gout is very painful, but it definitely runs in families. And like I said, osteo does also. I mean, but it doesn't have to be.
Which has to do with bones.
Well, it's actually more joints.
Joints,
Joints.
Well, what happens is you damage a joint, and it was a nice cushiony joint, and once you damage it, the body says, okay, I'm going to have to strengthen this up a little bit.
Right.
So I'm going to put some calcium in there like a bone, and then they start forming bone spurs, things like that. Things that aren't very comfortable.
Yeah, the body's trying to protect itself. Because
and not every ache and pain is arthritis.
No.
A lot of people, actually, especially when people come in and say, they're hurting here and hurting there, the first thing I say, well, is it in the joint or is it in the muscle? Because totally different if it's the connective tissues in the muscle and the joint, because that's technically not arthritis.
So I have to tell you a funny story. I stopped by the office about a week ago, and I've been having a little bit of a pain up through here, and I didn't know what it was or whatever. So Dr. Fox here starts punching on it. She said, does that hurt? And yes, it does. She said, well, and it's not arthritis, but it was...
no, it was like a tendonitis.
Yeah. Like a tendonitis.
Yeah, it's actually the tendon.
And though I've had problems with it for quite a while now, I mean, it's a totally different thing. So not every ache and pain is arthritis.
No. And then, like I said, there's a lot of the different kinds of arthritis. And there is the normal osteo. And in your hands, I always tell people, now the rule of thumb, and everybody's different, there's not 100% on anything, but if it's the end joints and the middle joints in the finger, then typically it tends to be more osteoarthritis. If it is on the hand, the joint on top of the hand here, and then this joint, a lot of times you need to be checked for rheumatoid arthritis because it comes in different joints. Now, it can come in technically any joint in the body, any of them, but that's kind of the things that you look for. But there are tests that you can do for RA. And I tell people when they start having joints that just swell, I mean, I'm talking like just an instant where there's like a golf ball on top of a joint, that tends to be more rheumatoid. So you always want to be checked because that's an autoimmune disease. And there's totally different things you can do for rheumatoid than you can do for osteo or gout. Gouty arthritis, a lot of it is diet.
So, and
that's a key
thing, because your diet, if you have arthritis, your diet can
it plays a big role in it.
Play a big role in it as far as it's going to add more complications to it. And there's certain things that it's almost like a lifestyle change, which you do whenever you want to lose weight. You got to change your diet. Or some of the things that you eat, and we talk about that every week.
There's actually a group of plants called the nightshade plants. And some of them are good for you, usually, but
some
somebody
of our
has
favorites,
extreme,
actually.
like potatoes, eggplant, peppers, they actually are in the nightshade family, which they're known to be pro-inflammatories. So if you have a lot of inflammation, we do recommend people actually not eating as many of those, even though some of them are usually good for you. Now, like always, we mentioned the sugar is an inflammatory, the grains are inflammatory, and it depends on if you have any food allergy, it can actually inflame a joint.
Yeah, anything.
But there's no doubt that a lot of the people that even have the gluten sensitivities, it might not show up in the stomach or the digestive tract, it may show up in the joints.
Okay, if you got a question for, we're talking about arthritis this morning, 896-0713, 800-349-0713. We are live. This is our Monday morning live show here with Doctors Nutrition, Dr. Jim and Janine Fox. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition on Cowan Road in Gulfport, south of Pash Road. If you have any questions, you can call in 896-0713, 800-349-0713. We can put you on the air live to ask them, or you can just pass the question along to our operator, and we'll be glad to pass it along to them. How can you tell what kind of arthritis that you have?
Well, like she was talking about, some of the things like the sudden swelling across the hand and so on, or any other joint. If it's just suddenly swollen and you haven't done anything to traumatize it, then you got to suspect rheumatoid. And there's tests you can do for that.
Right.
There's blood tests that you do for the rheumatoid to see, if it's active and so on. And if it's just osteo, and that rules out the rheumatoid. If it's not that, then okay, you may have to have an X-ray or something to see exactly what kind of damage.
And the gouty arthritis. Now, gout will actually pop up all of a sudden as well, and it gets real red. I mean, the redness that's associated with the gouty arthritis, and gout's pretty severe too. But you can check on lab work. If you have high uric acid levels, then definitely gout is an issue. And, for the rheumatoid, you can check the RA factor. A lot of the rheumatoid arthritises have a lot of inflammation. Your osteo comes on slower. It's kind of over the years, degeneration, you start getting stiff, you start kind of hurting, and it's slower coming on. To where if it's all of a sudden, like I said, you do suspect RA, and it tends to have a higher what they call a SED rate and a C-reactive protein, which are other values in the blood that actually show that. I've actually had people walk in before, and I said, how long did you have rheumatoid? And they said, well, I don't have rheumatoid. And I said, you don't? And the way they're walking and the way they're looking, and they were like, well, I've been to 8 doctors, and they haven't ever said anything. And I said, we need to check you, and sure enough, they have RA. So it's something that, to me, it's obvious sometimes, but people don't know. And if you don't know, that's what they're there for. Come by and ask us if you're not sure what kind of problems you're having, and there are definitely some blood tests that actually tells you which one it possibly is. Now, osteo does not show up on lab work. It's more of a X-ray.
It'll define it.
It'll just look like degeneration or osteophytes, or you actually do have osteo does show up on X-ray, but it doesn't always necessarily show up on lab work.
And the thing about that gout, a lot of people think, well, why did I get gout 35 or 45 or 55 or whenever age it hits you, you've had a problem all your life getting rid of uric acid. You don't get rid of it fast enough.
And that's what causes gout.
That's what
Yes.
causes
the
gout.
buildup of uric
It builds
acid.
up.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, it's kind of insidious. It builds up a little bit, builds up a little bit. And over a period of time, especially if you're eating a diet that's high in the uric acid, a lot of the organ meats, even red meat, the darker meats and so on, lots of shellfish, things like that that's got, and asparagus, don't forget that guy.
And actually, even the grains actually
even
have
the
some uric
grains,
acid.
right.
They're starting to
And
throw that
sugar.
in on all your lists. They're
And
starting to throw that
sugar,
in on
they're
the
even
list.
saying, well, okay, sugar's a big culprit in that too. Because if your body can't get rid of that uric acid fast enough, it builds up. And finally, when it gets to a point, yeah, it's going to hurt. And it hurts. If anybody out there has ever had gout or knows somebody who has, it's very painful.
Well, that's what I've heard.
Very
Yes,
painful.
it is.
Very
You know,
painful.
fortunate, knock on
But
wood,
the
that I
good
haven't
thing
had
is
it.
there are things you can do for gout.
Yeah.
The first thing we do is have you change your diet. I mean, that is definitely no question.
Oh, yeah,
matter-
no
gout
question.
Diet is very, very, very important.
What kind of things do you need to cut out?
Unfortunately, a lot at first if you're having a flare up because you got to cut out the grains and you got to cut out a lot of meat. I mean, and
And
shellfish.
shellfish especially.
We see a lot of
Well, that's hard to do down here on the coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
We see a lot of tourists that come in that are here for the weekend and they've went to the buffets and ate a lot of crab legs. We see that a lot. And they come
Well, that's
in
what
like,
you
oh
do.
my
When
gosh.
you go to the buffets, you eat
Exactly.
crab legs.
I was going to say, that's...
But they come in because they're out of town, and we do have we have something called uric acid formula that does work very well, but still we tell people to change their diets and actually do the things you want to do. You want to get rid of uric acid better, and there are nutrients that actually do help that. Which, it has, your quercetin and your folic acid and your black cherry extract, and black cherry is kind of known for it, and a lot of people do the black cherry juice, but when a lot of people are diabetic, and then the juice makes the sugar go up, so we do have all the black cherry extract capsules, and we have formulas that have it in it, so there's a lot of different things you can do for gout.
Yeah, don't forget you can call in 896-0713, 800-349-0713, our two phone lines. If you have a question regarding arthritis or anything that you might be having some problems with, you are welcome to give us a call. Now, you're talking about the shellfish and all that. I mean, can you cut it out of your diet for a while and then maybe introduce it back a little bit after you?
In small amounts.
In small amounts.
Exactly, because it's hard to do.
Right. They still have that problem. It's the thing about gout is it's an accumulative thing.
Right.
Because over time it just accumulates. Your body stores it because you can't get rid of it. And that's why it always winds up, and usually they always think about the big toe or great toe, because that's the farthest thing from, and the gravity just kind of takes it there. And a lot of times it does. And that just kind of accumulates to those. And when you look at a uric acid molecule under the microscope, it looks like, a crystal thing with some very sharp spikes. And those little spikes start gouging you, and they get into that joint, and they tend to accumulate around the joint.
That's
and
why
they
it
can,
hurts so much.
And they can actually destroy a joint.
Really?
They really
can.
can.
You
Yeah,
can
sure
actually
can.
end up degenerating the joint
Yeah.
because of having gout too long. There's no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of things. We give people lists. If they come in, we have lists that have high purines. We have the ones that are moderate and the ones that are low. The high ones you probably really shouldn't ever eat if you are predisposed to gout. The moderate ones you can do some. That's one that you actually have to see, and you'll find different people. One person will say the thing that flares me up the most is something in the moderate category. In their body, it's worse than some of the things in the severe. So it just depends on the person too. But I say, you trial and error.
That's when you want to say, well, don't eat it.
That's
then.
right. If you find out it hurts you, don't eat it.
Exactly.
One of those things, yeah.
That's the only thing. It hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that.
Right.
I mean, chicken even is in the moderate category. And
Really?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yet
You would think chicken wouldn't.
it is,
it's
but yet
moderate.
it's not the one that tends to flare.
Right.
Some people's, but when they're in a flare-up, we recommend stopping all of it.
Okay, Ashley from Socia has got a question for us. What can someone with past knee injuries do to prevent arthritis?
That's one of the things that we stress is if you have an injury or something, you want to try to prevent, because prevention is a whole lot better than treatment, really, or trying to treat it. One of the things we use is a lot of the glucosamines, and everybody's heard about the glucosamine. One particular that we use is Perna. Now, Perna is a shellfish.
And if you
So-
aren't, we can't use it in gout.
Can't use it in gout. You gout people are out. But if you're not allergic to shellfish and you don't have gout, it's wonderful because it actually has all 9 different classes of glucosamines Has some chondroitins and so on.
And hyaluronic acid and chelated minerals. And like I said, they've definitely, research is better on the Perna than in the glucosamines.
Much better.
And we use something called Perna Max that actually has all the different things with extra things added to it for joints.
Yeah, we put some boswellia in there as an anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, it's not just an anti-inflammatory, but research has shown that it actually can prevent degeneration later.
Right.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
8960713, 800-349-0713. We're talking about arthritis this morning, or if you have, again, if you have any question about something else, you're welcome to give us a call in. This is live, our Monday morning live edition of Live Healthy, Be Healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox. We'll be back with our final segment and this week's special offer in just a moment. And welcome back. This is our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi, Live Healthy, Be Healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox and Doctors Nutrition, Callan Road and Gulfport South of Pass Road. And remind you that this program will be rebroadcast this coming Friday at 9 o'clock here on WLOX CBS. We're talking about arthritis this morning. Of course, if you have any other questions, you are welcome to call in. Thomas from Pascagoula. What are some treatments for cramps? I guess muscle cramps?
we assume muscle cramps.
This time of year, they're quite common.
Yes.
Water. A lot of water.
Definitely staying hydrated, but we get a lot of people that even drink a lot and they still have cramps. Well, minerals.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what about the sport drinks, you know, Gatorade, things like that?
Way too much sugar.
Way too much sugar.
I was going to say, I had a lot of sugar.
We do have some electrolyte drinks that actually don't have sugar in it, and so a lot of people come in it sweetened with even stevia. But we probably do more during the summer than anything with men is we have something called Citramins 2, which is a multi-mineral. And it gives you all the different minerals. And you can actually have blood work done to see which mineral it is. And sometimes it can even be sodium, but we don't recommend just going out and eating a lot of salt unless you know that's the problem. But all that makes a difference in cramps. We have something called muscle cramp and tension formula, which is also minerals with a few relaxants in it. That works well. But finding an underlying problem is the thing a lot of times. And then sometimes back problems do it.
Yeah, they sure can. If you've got like a low back or something that's not right, you may not have experienced that much pain, so to speak, in the low back. You may have cramps in the lower extremities. That may be one of the first signs.
And a lot of times it's at night when they're sleeping because of the position that they're in.
Right.
And the position the back is in actually affects the nerve, which then affects the muscle. So it can be a few different things. If you have any other questions, just give us a call.
That's why it's always good to invest in a good mattress to sleep on. Because
mattress can make a big difference.
Oh, it does. Yeah. It does. I mean, different, not only that, but in different health ways.
Well, yeah, like we've talked about before, when we sleep is when we heal. So if you don't sleep well, you're not going to have very good healing process going on.
And everybody always thinks about potassium, and potassium definitely can make muscle cramping.
It can be.
But everybody wants to eat a lot of bananas, which has high sugar. We recommend avocados. Avocados are four times what's in a banana, and it's actually really good for you.
Okay, Georgette from Ocean Springs has a question for us.
Hyaluronic acid.
Talk more about hyaluronic acid.
Hyaluronic acid.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a very good compound.
Oh, hyaluronic acid is the glue that holds us together. Seriously. I remember, long time ago and far away in school, at that time we would talk about, hyaluronic acid being that glue that kind of holds collagen together and everything else. And I think, gosh, boy, wouldn't it be neat if you could take some of that? And at that time, you couldn't because they couldn't extract it. Now, and thank the Japanese, they came up with some processes to where we could extract out that hyaluronic acid and put it in a molecule that we can actually absorb. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, and a lot of your collagens actually contain hyaluronic acid, which you see a lot of collagen for joints because it does help the connective tissue around it. We'll talk about our specials since this is the last segment anyway. Our specials this week are Perna Max and Collagen Plus. Our Collagen Plus contains hyaluronic acid, and then we also have a hyaluronic acid compound by itself. So all that's really good for joints.
Yes.
Okay, and that special will be good. Of course, they're closed today, but that will be good through this
rest of this week.
Rest of this week. Another caller asked, could steroid shots cause a pre-diabetic patient turn into a full diabetic patient?
Yes.
Yes, it can. I've seen it quite often.
It happens. Steroids are even your body's own steroid, which is
your
like
cortisol.
Because a lot of people they get sick, and the first thing I want to go to the doctor and get a steroid shot.
Steroid shot, no question, actually increases blood sugar. And now whether it is the only thing that turns you into a diabetic, who knows? You have to take a lot of different factors, but there's no doubt I've seen people over the years that were borderline, and then when they get those steroid shots, then they're full-blown diabetic because that sugar goes up so dramatically.
Wow.
So
Certainly
yes,
does.
it can.
So not always getting a steroid shot for that cold or whatever.
And speak,
Probably
you know,
not a good
and
idea.
actually a lot of the, you know, even the steroid shots in the joints, since we're talking about the arthritis, yes, it helps the pain a lot of times, but multiple and too many in one area can actually cause degeneration. So that's another thing that we
That's one of
see.
the downsides
People
of it,
have
yeah.
degeneration after multiple, not just usually one, but a multiple rounds.
Well, while
of
we're on that
steroid
subject, let me
shots.
ask you this, because I know it's people that have gone through this, but what about, you know, they have problems in their neck or whatever, vertebrae, they go and get, what, like an epidural or something? I mean, is that like a steroid shot?
Well, it depends on whether they're
Depends
doing
on what
it.
they use.
If they're doing an epidural, they're probably using a pain, something to numb it.
It can be used different
Now,
agents.
if they actually get into the joint there, the little joints in the neck, and put steroid injections in there, that can actually, I've seen too many of those over the years where multiple times. And what's really interesting is a lot of times the patient will go to a surgeon. It's usually an orthopedic surgeon that does it. They'll go to one, and the orthopedic surgeon says, we're getting a little too much of this, so we're going to have to back off. They'll go to another one.
Yeah.
And after several,
So a lot of times it's not the doctor's fault they're
No.
getting multiple, it's the patient from going to multiple places, but that's always
They just
an
doing
issue.
more harm to your body than
Yeah.
That's what happens. They
in
just
the first
kinda wind
place.
up
There's a few natural compounds I just wanted to let people know about because there's so much good research for joints since we're fixing to run out of time. The curcumins. The curcumins have
from your turmeric.
turmeric, which is
Turmeric.
which is the
Got an
active
R in it.
ingredient. And SAMe is really good for joints. Boswellia, really good for joints. So there's a lot of different things you can do for joints.
It certainly is.
Yes, there's a lot of things you can do.
Okay. Melvin from Poplarville has got a question. Have had the hiccups for about a week. What can he do to make them go away?
Ooh, when they last that long.
Someone sneak up behind you and go, boo.
But yeah, well, that might help. It would take a big boo. But, the thing, usually when it's lasted that long, sometimes they have to have some sort of a medication to intervene to stop that.
And you got to
action.
figure out if there's a problem that's causing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that one's a hard one to answer.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for the call, Melvin. We've got just a couple of minutes left. So prevention for any type of arthritis? I mean,
Well, it's just like we talk about a lot of the folks that that exercise quite a bit. Okay, if you're exercising, especially if you're running or something like that,
Good
shoes are a must. And even if you don't have a problem, that's the time to start taking the things like the Perna that we just talked about. They're glucosamines.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Mary from Long Beach, real quick. Is MSM good, rheumatoid?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's one that really seems to help a rheumatoid very well. It really
It's
does.
actually a source of sulfur, and it's a natural sulfur. And MSM's been good for a lot of things, but there is a lot of research specific for RA. So it's one that is in our Perna Max, and Perna itself has a lot of research for RA, and it contains the MSM also. So it's what's on special this week.
Okay. Well, next week, there's your special there,
Yep.
right there, Pertamax and Collagen Plus, and that's this week only at the store. Of course, y'all are closed today.
Close today.
back
We'll be
on-
here the next week, rest of the week. Yep.
Okay, well, next week, we had someone write in a suggestion from Waveland and asked if we would do a segment on PTSD.
Yeah.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
They wanted to know after Katrina. So it was actually related to the hurricane.
storm, yeah.
Yeah, things
And
we've
so we
had,
are
yeah.
going to talk about that next week.
Sure will.
Yeah, and of course, there, a lot of people deal with PTSD, whether, storm related or whatever.
Yes.
So, that's something that we'll cover. So we'll be back here next. Again, this show will be rebroadcast this Friday at 9 o'clock, WLOX CBS, and then again, a new chapter next Monday. So have a great weekend.
Finish
Have a
up the
great
weekend.
Yeah.
Memorial Day, and thank you so much for being with us here this morning.